Salutations one and all, and welcome to RWBY Revisited. Something that I've been questioning for a while is the Grimm. What really are they, and why do the general populace of Remnant not seem to want to understand more about what makes them tick? Please be aware that spoilers for all volumes will follow, and any material revealed or expanded upon in supplementary material won't be weighted as heavily as that which is seen in this show. So, if Crow's retelling is accurate, the Grimm are actually the catalyst for humanity's creation. Ozma told him that the god of Dark created Grimm as a counter to his brother's creations, and that spurred the two to fight and eventually compromise with creating humanity. In a sense, this would almost make the Grimm a sibling race to humanity, both stemming directly from the god's creation. That's one heck of a sibling rivalry.
Brother, I am pinned here!
During our brief viewing of humanity's first go-around, the Grimm don't seem to be much of a threat, as we don't see them attacking humanity, and with magic being readily available, dealing with Grimm would likely be a much simpler matter. But Jin says that nobody entered the God of Dark's domain specifically because they knew what came from the black pools there. This makes me wonder if the Grimm didn't wander freely like they do in modern Remnant, and perhaps were confined to the God of Darkness's lair. We see them in the God of Dark's domain, and they appear to restrain themselves from attacking Salem on his will. They're clearly interested in her, but they make no move to attack her. They do become agitated as the God of Dark argues with his brother, however, indicating that they may be affected by his mood. What's strange here is that the God of Light actually looks around at the snarling Grimm as though they could be a threat. When the God of Dark is ready to fight him, the God of Light takes the time to destroy the surrounding Grimm. Why would he take the time to do this? The first option is that they're merely an annoyance and he wants them gone. The other line of thought would be that they could actually hurt him, and so he acted in self-defense. The first option is the more likely, but if the Grimm couldn't do anything to him, why would he bother to acknowledge their presence?
I killed plenty of
Grimm.
The dime a dozen backstabbing scumbags, like you!
After the gods leave Remnant, Grimm can be seen in the background, poking through a now empty settlement. Judging by how dilapidated some of the buildings are though, they've been standing empty for quite some time. They also don't attack either Salem or the deer nearby. Now, external sources have stated that the Grimm don't attack wildlife, only humans and faunus. So the deer being ignored fits with that. But why are they ignoring Salem? Does her curse that the gods put on her make them have no interest in her? But this brings us to modern Remnant. The Grimm answer to Salem, though when she came to discover this ability and use it is uncertain. They're portrayed as the main threat to humanity and the faunus, but just how did that come to pass? Understandably, ancient humans and faunus would have had a terrible time against Grimm, but with modern Remnant's tech, the Grimm shouldn't be that much of a threat at all to the kingdoms themselves. Most Grimm are little more than wild animals. Larger and stronger, yes, but they lack the ability to utilize tech like a human can. The vast majority need to close the distance to an opponent to attack them with claws or fangs. And you know what's a great counter to that? Guns.
This right here is my favorite thing, ever. In the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
Not only that, but with tech like airships, mechs, and motorized vehicles, the vast majority of Grimm should be nothing more than an annoyance for any security personnel. It's like if a group of bears were to run wild through a city. They're resilient and fearsome, yes, but blast them with enough rounds and they'll go down. Add a wall surrounding the major cities and settlements with gun emplacements along the top, and most Grimm should never be able to get near. That aside, the Grimm are an anomaly in terms of life. They don't need to eat, but they choose to. They also seem to exist in 3 different states of matter. Let me explain. They first exist in a liquid goop form, and then they are formed into solid Grimm. When killed, they fizzle out, much like they're vaporizing. It's rather strange.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
Does this vapor return to Grimm pools so that new Grimm can be spawned? We don't know, but it would explain why the Grimm goop never seems to run out. Another weird little detail is what causes a Grimm to die. Obviously, we humans and other creatures depend on a ton of different biological processes to keep us alive. Stop a critical one of those, and it's lights out. Grimm don't have this though. They're just solidified goop. What is it that causes their demise when shot or disposed of with a melee weapon? They don't seem to have a vascular system. It's stated that they couldn't survive in the cold of Atlas until they were modified, though whether that was through natural adaptation or Salem's tinkering is up for speculation. Then there's this strange property that their liquid form has. It seems to kill or try to kill anything that makes contact with it. But this property is lost once they become solid. Characters can touch Grimm directly and suffer no ill effects, so at some point their insta-kill ability disappears. If Salem ever figures out how to keep that, then it could very well be game over for a lot of people. Salem also seems to have tinkered with getting around this with the creation of the Hound. We don't know at this time whether only silver-eyed individuals can be used in this manner, or if anyone can, but this is likely a setup for further and more monstrous creatures to come. Also take note of how the bones remained after the Hound died, indicating that this unfortunate man's skeletal structure was being changed while he was alive. It's stated that Grimm die when put in captivity, but why? It certainly can't be from lack of nutrients. They don't need to eat. It also can't be for lack of killing humans and faunus, because wild Grimm that have lived long enough to learn to choose their fights can go for long periods of time without killing, as evidenced by the Grimm in Mountain Glen. Another oddity is that certain Grimm demonstrate characteristics seen nowhere else. Some Grimm, like the Sphinx, can shoot fireballs out of their mouths. The apathy causes anyone in the area to lose the will to do anything at all.
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
Geists can pass through solid matter on a whim and make bodies for themselves from inanimate objects. All of these are things that normal creatures just can't do. But nobody in Remnant questions this. It's stated with certainty that Grimm can't have semblances as they lack souls, and this also doesn't appear to be something like a chemical reaction or pheromones. So it's a bit strange that the cast are so surprised by the existence of magic when these creatures they've been fighting have these miraculous abilities. In this scene where Weiss faces a Borbotusk, you can see taxidermized heads of Grimm mounted on the wall. Now, Grimm vaporize when they die, so what exactly would you be using to make these trophies? If they're imitations, then that wouldn't do much for the owner's credibility. Anyone could claim to have killed a powerful Grimm, but these wouldn't work as proof because these trophies are complete fabrications. Either that, or whoever modeled the set for this scene forgot about the Grimm not leaving bodies behind.
Come on over here. Come on over here. No, you flip me off. Come on, coward. No. Come on. You're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
It's also worth noting that I would love to understand more about how the Grimm are able to perceive the world. When Ren uses his semblance to mask the emotions of himself or others, they become imperceptible to the Grimm. Grimm can obviously see well enough to move around their environment, so how do they perceive their potential victims? Many even have more than two eyes, but this doesn't seem to help them much. With all this in mind, we have a strange juxtaposition. Grimm, being Salem's strongest force, are portrayed as the largest threat to humanity as a whole, but the Grimm have taken a back seat as antagonists for a while now. In Volume 8, we had the Hound, and Yang's group had a few brief encounters with some scattered Grimm, and a small number attacked the Schnee Manor, and there were those in the Vacchio Desert. Yes, the Atlas military was engaging Grimm, but the main cast had relatively little contact with them. In Volume 7, the Grimm are able to enter Mantle during the beginning of the season, and then are fought again near the end, but the focus is never on them for very long. The Geist in the mines had some attention given to it, but this was largely meant to serve as an introduction for the Aesops. Volume 6 was the last time that the Grimm were a major threat to the main cast for a significant period of time. They swarm the train to Argus, the team encounter the Apathy, and then the Leviathan is the sort of final boss of the end of the volume. I hope that the introduction of the Hound impends the Grimm becoming a threat again, as they've been seen too little for their level of threat for the world. Salem's agents are a more dexterous option for her, but the Grimm are Salem's muscle. She can produce them and modify them at will, and the implementation of Monstro shows that she can craft a horde that can threaten anything that the kingdoms can muster. But how exactly do the Grimm manage to find their way across all of Remnant? Salem's domain is most likely here, somewhere in this continent that has been unnamed and unmentioned in the show. It just makes the most sense for her hidden lair full of Grimm pools to be somewhere remote. I have a theory. We saw a river of Grimm goo in Volume 8, and it seemingly came from nowhere. Yes, Monstro could vomit up Grimm sludge, but that river was never portrayed as being created by the whale. Perhaps streams of Grimm are subterranean, and they flow underneath the Four Kingdoms. It could seep out onto the surface in remote locations, and thus Grimm could end up anywhere. It would be kind of ridiculous to imagine Beowulf swimming across the ocean to reach Vale.
You can't swim!
This could also explain why the Wyvern was encased inside that mountain. If it was the result of a Grimm pool forming inside the rock, then certainly nobody would have ever discovered it, and it would answer why Grimm ooze was falling from it. If this is how Grimm form, then it would explain how huntsmen and huntresses haven't succeeded in any attempts to completely exterminate them. But these are simply my observations. What are yours? How do you feel about the Grimm and what we've seen of them in the show? I'd be interested in reading your thoughts in the comments below, and I want to thank you for watching. If you found this video entertaining or informative, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to see more. And may you all have a weapon in each hand.